Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jupiter James and this is Astro Motivation, where I awaken the astrologer within you and aim to give you a little inspiration and motivation per your unique placement within your birth chart. You know, I really do feel that before a time of technology, we were a culture, a society, a people that were better able to look up at the stars and understand exactly where our dreams were and how to get them. And so if that sounds good to you, let's get into it. Today we're going to get into a very juicy, controversial topic, and that is the empty houses. And you know, there is a lot of curiosity out there of what they mean and what they fall under and what will happen if I have no planets in a certain house. You know, I'm sure if you are someone out there that unless you have a planet per house, you are someone that has an empty house, okay? And so don't fret, don't worry. I'm gonna go ahead and unpack what these things mean and what an empty house means within the birth chart and within your birth chart. And I'm also at the end of this video, stick with me, I'm gonna give you a pro tip on how to interpret that empty house, okay? So let's get into it. So with an empty house in the birth chart is a house that has no planets inside of it, okay? Not a point. Well, sometimes you can have points, but points don't really let's just say you have an empty house, okay? No points, nothing there, nothing is going on, all right? When I first began getting into astrology, I would literally be scouring the internet like, oh my God, does that mean that I'm not gonna be given the themes or the things or the benefits of this house if I don't have a planet there? Does that mean that I don't have any magic in that house? And lo and behold, come to find out after years of working with birth charts and after seeing these things play out in so many people's lives, I've come to find out that empty houses are actually good. You know, empty houses don't mean that you have bad luck. It doesn't mean that you are weak in that house or weak in that area. It just means that that house actually will not be distracted by anything else within your life or within your chart. You know, it also indicates that this area of your life may flow smoother than the areas that you do have actual planets in, because that is where your life's journey will be headed, is where the planets are. You know, it means that in this specific life, you are not meant to focus on that area. The universe will take care of that area for you. It's already taken care of. You know, this gives me very much the energy of people who come down to the planet, right? And they have a great career, they have a great friendship life, they have money, they have great, family relationships, but there's that one area of their life that's missing. And usually that is because that person comes down with something that is a little bit missing, and that's not the empty houses. I would say that the people that come down and they have all those things are the people that have empty houses in those respective areas, okay? Now, with that being said, we got into the fact that, you know, the empty houses mean that you have come down to this planet and you are not meant to focus on that area. And I really want to zoom in on that topic a little bit more, okay? And I'm going to give you a pro tip on how I interpret it when I come across these things in a birth chart. And I'm going to let you in on some secrets and some tips on how to best really utilize your birth chart and really get the most information you could. Because just because you don't have planets in that house doesn't mean that house isn't working, doesn't mean that you can't interpret further on what is going on in that house or how best to get the qualities out of that house, okay? So let's say you are someone with Capricorn in the 5th house, all right? Now, Capricorn in the 5th house, say you had in the 5th house no planets in that Capricorn 5th house, okay? This, for me, is going to show that this person's first and foremost, if you have an empty house anywhere, it means that you are not meant to really focus or put any energy, or there's not going to be a lot of action happening in that house. Now, if you have Capricorn in the 5th house with no planets in that house, I, as an astrologer, would say, okay, what is the ruler of Capricorn? It's Saturn. So I would say that this person if they wanted to reap the good benefits of their fifth house, they would have to conduct their dating life like a business. They would have to put on a very practical, work-oriented demeanor when it comes to conducting their love life, you know? And I would also say, knowing what I know about Capricorn, I would also say that this area of your life will get better when you are older and when you learn to attack your dating life in a very practical and business-like fashion. You see, that is the only way that this fifth house will like to conduct itself and be able to carry out and give you the good benefits of said house, okay? Now, pro tip, you ready? If I wanted to know more about how that fifth house is being colored and what more that house can do, I would trace where Saturn is in the birth chart. I would say, okay, where is Saturn? Is it in the 11th house? Is it in the 10th house? Is it in the 12th house? And from there, once I follow where Saturn is, I would then go ahead and see and pull in more qualities from whatever respective house that Saturn might be in into that interpretation, okay? Now, that is one key aspect, and let's go into a little bit more of a positive sign, okay? Let's say this person has Sagittarius in the fifth house, okay? This is going to mean that this person will be very abundant in this area, but only will be abundant when they are free, when they are doing their own thing. These people will attract people when they are free and being philosophical and expanding their lives, okay? They will also attract people, Jupiter being the ruler of Sagittarius, right? This is a more positive flare. We did Saturn, right? We did a Saturn sign that would be coloring the fifth house. Now we're doing a Jupiterian sign that's positive, right? This person will also attract people who want to teach them things and who may be from different walks of life and who may have a philosophical edge to their personality, okay? So you see how there are no planets in the Capricorn example and there's no planets within the Jupiter or Sagittarius example, but we can imagine and understand that there is still a planet within the sign that is ruling that house, and that is how you would interpret that house. You would kind of imagine and play around and just like, you know, say you had Taurus, you would say, okay, it would be almost like Venus is in the fifth house. You see what I'm saying? If you had Aquarius, it would almost be like Uranus is in that fifth house. You see what I mean? So even though there is not a planet in the houses, there is still a planet ruling the sign that's ruling the house, and you would then still make your same interpretations as if you would the empty houses, you see? But what I will say is that even though you are not meant to really focus on those empty houses, and even though you will be granted those things, there are some cases, and in most cases, where say you did have Capricorn in the fifth house, correct? And you were out being very willy-nilly, you were just trying to have fun, you're like carefree, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. You will not have successful relationships because you are not doing that empty house like it wants to be done. You are not conducting that fifth house energy like that fifth house sign wants to be conducted. You see what I mean? So in order to get the good benefits from the empty houses, you have to follow the guise or the sign that the empty house is in, okay? In order for it to prove successful in your life, okay? Now, you could also interpret it, now that we know that we can interpret the empty signs based on the ruler of their signs, or the empty house is based on the sign of the ruler of the sign. Now that we know that we can do that and interpret it as such, and now that we know that we can also then go ahead and take the ruler of the sign and trace it through the birth chart to get more of an interpretation on how that sign likes to be conducted or will be conducted, Now we can also infer and assume that you could also interpret your empty houses based on the transits. Sometimes you may have a transit that is happening in an empty house, and that will influence that house tenfold because there are no other planets influencing that house. Let's say we have a very slow moving planet on your 5th house, right? Like let's say Pluto is in your 5th house, correct? And we know that Pluto is a very generational, very slow moving planet, and there are no planets in your natal chart or in your natal birth chart, but we have the transiting Pluto that is a very slow sign hovering and transiting over your 5th house. That would almost be like you got Pluto in the 5th house for the duration of the 20 to 30 years that Pluto will be in that house. So you could then say, okay, you have Capricorn in the 5th house, and it would almost be like you have Pluto in Capricorn in the 5th house because you have this very slow planet moving through that zodiac or moving through that sign or moving through that house. And so you would make those interpretations based on the summaries of all that knowledge because it will still apply, okay? So those are some tips and some analyses and some things that I've discovered being an astrologer that have always proven correct and proven very detailed for people when they are very confused or very scared about their empty houses. You know, I get so many questions. People being like, oh my God, does that mean I'll never get a lover? Does that mean I'm gonna fail in my career? In actuality, it's the contrary. You know, it means that the universe is handling that area. It's something that you most likely mastered in a past life, and that's why it comes so naturally to you. You know, you don't really have to think of it. Unless you have a Saturn ruled sign on that empty house like Capricorn or Aquarius, then those things will be a little bit harder and you will have to work at that empty house. But for all the other signs, I just want you to imagine that you just take the ruler of said sign and you just plug it in. You know, that's all you do. You just plug it in and you pretend that it is a second Venus in that house, or it is a second Mercury, or a second, even though you already have Mercury somewhere else, right? I want you to pretend that whatever the ruler is on that empty house, you just plug in that sign and conduct it as such, and take the characteristics of that sign and say, this is how that house will like to be conducted in order for it to play out and manifest in a very positive way and for you to reap the benefits, okay? So I really do hope that this was a very comprehensive and helpful video for you. Let me know what your house and what your sign is on your empty houses, and I will let you know how you best can reap the good benefits from that empty house, okay? But I really do hope that this helped you. Remember that you are a unique personified time and celestial point in space, and that is a miracle. And what will you do with that miracle that you've been given, okay? I will see y'all in the next video. Bye.